All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our workshop titled The Marginalization of Asians and Pacific Islanders. Bulavinaka, my name is Thani.
Ciao, my name is Brenda.
My name is Shalom.
Oh yeah, this is our workshop, and if you're at the wrong place, please stay. We want the support. So
Okay, goodbye.
So before we kind of get started on this workshop, we wanted to acknowledge the land. And if you have been through any of the Unity Through Diversity weeks, you're definitely going to recognize this. But I would like us to collectively take a moment to acknowledge all Indigenous and First Peoples of the land and space in which we live and breathe. For our community at Highline College, we recognize that we are on occupied Duwamish, Coast Salish, Muckleshoot, and Puyallup lands. And we want to thank all relations and tribes today as we prepare to hold space as a community. We recognize that all of us are joining this conversation from different areas, so we also want to invite you to reflect and thank Indigenous and First Peoples of the land and space in which we're coming from. So thank you. Next up, we're just going to go through some quick workshop rules and guidelines. So first things first, take care of yourselves, all right? If you got to pee, you got to drink something, eat something, you do you. Take care of yourself first. Number 2, use I statements only. No, we think this or we disagree with this. Use I statements only. Number 3, confidentiality. The story stays, the lesson leaves. Some people tend to share like personal stories on here. Make sure what leaves isn't the personal story itself, but the lesson learned from that story. And number 4, impact over intent. Make sure that, be careful with your intentions. I know like a lot of people say, oh, that was not my intention to do this. Think about the impact that you're making. That's the best way I can explain it. Number 5, vocalize your feelings. If you are feeling something, snap. If you don't agree with something or if it hurt you, be like, ouch. Yeah, vocalize your feelings. Number 6, step up and step back. If you're someone who likes to talk a lot, maybe take a step back and allow someone who doesn't really talk a lot to share their opinions. And number 7, silence is okay. Like, we understand that it takes time to process things, so it's okay to be silent. It's fine. Number 8, leave space for growth. Let's take a moment to really grow in our environment together, grow in knowledge, and yeah, just be in the presence of one another. Number 9, don't yuck people's yums. All right, don't be like, or like, what the heck? Don't yuck people's yums. It makes me feel bad, but yeah, don't yuck people's yums. And number 10, if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave it in the comment box. But for now, we're going to get going. And thank you to the Black and Brown Summit for letting us use this workshop rule and guideline. Take it away.
Okay. Shalom, God.
Some of the key concepts we're going to touch base on have to do with marginalization, American dream, model, minority myth, discrimination, and representation. We had a few other ideas, but since the time given to us and the change, we had to cut some off.
But in all, they're all very important, so yeah.
So the main thing we want to talk about today is marginalization, and to define it is to relegate to an unimportant or powerless position within a society or group. And throughout our PowerPoint, we'll be like touching up on why we decided to choose this word for our presentation today. Yep.
Wait. Okay.
Okay, so first off, let's understand the model minority myth. So I don't know if many of you guys have heard about it, but if you guys already do, please be patient. I know a lot of you guys heard about it before. So we're often considered the perfect minority. We're considered hardworking. We don't need any help, but is that really the case? So the stats I'm showing you guys are on your left is college enrollment for 4 different races. And then on your right is the chart for the Asian ethnicities. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you notice how like on your left, Asians have the highest rate of college enrollment rates like in the country. And so that's why everyone has an assumption that because we have the highest college enrollment rate, we don't need any help because we're already succeeding in life and we're doing so much better than everyone else. But that's not really the case, because if you look on the right, the reality is the only people who are succeeding are mostly wealthier nations or East Asians. So Indian, Korean, Chinese, and other Asian Americans, they have like a higher college graduation rate. But if you look at other like ethnicities such as Vietnamese and Hawaiian, that's not the case. We only have 29.5% or 26.5% graduation rates at all in college. And that brings me to the next topic, the American dream. So when we're separated by ethnicity, we have drastically different standings in college and finances. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because poverty rates among like Asian ethnicities are never really talked about. Like Asians overall have the highest median in the US for family income. But is that really the case we see here? If you look at the poverty rates among Southeast Asian Americans, we actually have higher poverty rates than the national average for Laotian, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Hmong, and they're extremely higher than the national average for poverty. And if you look on your right, on figure 5, for percent of adults who have not attended college by ethnicity, this is for who has not attended college. So if you look at Cambodian, Laotian, Hmong, Vietnamese, and Pacific Islander races, ethnicities, you notice that over 50% to 60% of them have not attended college at all compared to the East Asian races. And this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about today, because everyone assumes that because we're so successful, we don't need a voice in society. We don't need to have representation because we're doing already so well. But that's not true at all, because looking at these statistics, we're doing much worse when we're separated. You can't lump a whole entire race into one, because China and India alone make up 1.3 billion people. So both of them together make up 2.6 billion people in the world out of 7 billion people. So if you think about it, 2.6 billion people out of 7 billion people are already Chinese and Indian, and that's only two races, two countries out of Asia. And so seeing these numbers, like you can't lump all these numbers together into one, because when we end up talking about what ethnicities and what races need help, nobody ever comes back to us. And then we're going to talk about why do people view us this way? Why do people think we don't need help? So we're going to move on to the next slide and explain to you guys how has this happened. So I want you guys to talk about how some of this happened to you guys. Shalom, can you introduce the next question? Shalom, you're on mute. Shalom.
Dang it, I knew that.
Right. Yeah, and then before we begin, I speak really fast, so please let me know if I'm speaking too fast. I'm very passionate about this. Okay. Okay, am I speaking too fast?
Oh no.
Good question.
Okay, awesome. Shalom, take it off.
Okay, thank you. The question today would for a 5-minute breakout session: how have some of us experienced or seen our race and or ethnicity be undermined or marginalized in society?
All right, everyone's back. Go ahead and take it over, girls.
Can you guys still see my screen?
Nope, go ahead and share it.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, so is it sharing?
Yep, it's
Okay,
shared.
cool. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, so that was a good session. I think one of our people. Oh,
Hey.
yeah, so that was a great session. Now moving on to the next part of our workshop. The media's portrayal of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Now, big corporations like Disney will kind of put on this narrative of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And one thing that I want to talk about specifically for Asian Americans is something called yellowface. Now, yellowface, for those who don't know, is used to refer to the practices of wearing makeup to imitate the appearance of an East Asian person, typically as part of a performance. Now, honestly, when I see yellowface, I think of white people playing East Asian roles. And as you can see here, this is Louise Rayner. She's portraying an Asian character, Olan, in The Good Earth. This is what Olan's supposed to look like. And this is what Louise Rayner was portraying her as. And same goes for Myrna Loy. She was portraying an Asian character named Fa Lo Soy. This is what she's supposed to look like. This is what Hollywood made her look like. And so, yeah, Europeans taking Asian roles. And that will lead into this video that we're gonna watch. Yeah, so that is yellowface in all its negativity. I just want to know, what do you all think about it? What do you all think about it? What are your thoughts? And this wasn't in the script, so please, please volunteer.
Like, some of you guys understand, like, yellowface, like, all of these movies happened, and like for some of the movies that you see, only a certain like you see some of them, like you only hear some people talk about it. You don't hear a lot of people talk about it at all, really. And some of these people who did yellowface in the first place won Oscars, and nobody really ever talks about this in society. And even today, nobody really talks about it. And you saw how in the video we saw, like the one of the guys, I think Snyder, like Joel Snyder.
Yeah, Ben Schneider.
Yeah, Ben Snyder. Like, this was recent. Even like a couple years ago, they're still like doing yellowface in movies. For like the recent films, they're still happening, and yet nobody seems to be talking about it. And this is what the media portrayal has done. Yet, like, we have failed to like bring this topic to light, unfortunately.
A lot of people have heard about, blackface, but they don't really like acknowledge yellowface either, which is a problem. So let's continue. Now, who here has seen Mulan? Yes, Lupe, I see you. Yes, Chaz, I see you. I see all y'all. Also, I got you. All right. Like, Mulan, she's a great Disney princess, even though she's technically not a princess. And she has a lot of good traits about her. Mulan was one of the few Asian representations since like Joy Luck Club was released in like 1993 at the time. So it was refreshing to see like an Asian representative, and which also leads into her being the first Asian Disney princess. So it was refreshing to see a woman of color as an Asian Disney princess. And then she has a lot of good traits about her, like her relatability. In Mulan, she struggles with her self-identity and finding herself, which is something that I personally relate to. So she can relate a lot to the audience. Selfishness versus selflessness. I am going to argue that she was selfish, but in a good way. one can argue that her intentions were selfless, like her wanting to go into the army in place of her father. But the reason why she stayed was, she even says so right here, she wanted to prove that she could do things right. And everybody needs that good bit of selfishness. But guess the problem? I want y'all to talk about it and just point out what problems Mulan may have had in the film.
Yeah, and the reason why we're playing this game is because just like how we showed you Yellowface and then about other movies they pointed out, we want to bring you one of the most popular like well-known films out there, and we want you to figure out what's wrong with this film, even though it's so beloved by everyone else. So just think about what problems there may be in the film altogether, and we'll point them out later for you guys. Does anyone want to volunteer and point out what problems Mulan may have? Like for those who have watched it before?
Does it have to relate to Yellowface?
No, not Yellowface, just anything in general, like misinterpretation, false information, like just anything.
Okay. Because I missed that part of Yellowface, my bad.
No, that's all right.
I wasn't sure.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Kathy. I am the Trio Program Manager. I loved Mulan growing up. It was one of my favorite movies, and my brother bought me the VHS, and I was so happy. But I wanted to, something that I had noticed is the villains in the story, the Huns, have that very stereotypical Asian look, right? Like they are gray, they have slanty eyes. For me, they kind of reminded me of like Yellow Peril and what like a lot of folks thought about Asian Americans in like the 1800s, 1900s. And so that was something that like always stuck out to me in watching Mulan.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Definitely. I actually didn't think about that. So wow, thank you for providing a different insight. Yeah, does anybody else want
to
here?
Yeah, so Mr. Lupe says that they're voiced by non-Asian actors too in Mulan. Tui, like forgive me for my pronunciation. Tui, sorry, awful grammar. Said inaccurate cultural representation. Mei Lucan said being Chinese was insulting because they portrayed our characters so foolishly, darker skin and everything else. And everything you guys are saying are true. Like, yeah. So if you go down to the next slide, one of the most ironic things, like saying you can go talk about this, is
so the misrepresentation / westernization of Chinese culture. I think Kukui was talking about it before, but it's basically like Chinese culture, right? But Americanized. And so, yeah, that's one of the many problems with not only Mulan, but I notice a lot of Disney movies, they tend to Americanize culture, and that's just the reality, the sad reality. And then another thing I noticed while reading countless articles about Mulan was there's actually a Japanese flag, which is pretty ironic because it's a Chinese movie. So Japanese flag on the tent and then on the man's clothing. I thought that was really ironic, and it's kind of a way that Disney like lumps like these Asian cultures together and then just makes a movie about it. And so, yeah, I thought that was really kind of ironic, but yeah, next.
Moana.
Shalom, take it away.
Have you guys watched Moana?
Oh yes, that's my movie.
Whatchamacallit? Maybe next slide, please. Good traits about Moana. So When we think of the Islander in like the Hollywood representation, people think of The Rock and Jason, you know, because those are the top Islander that people see nowadays. But Moana was the first Pacific Islander princess. I wouldn't consider her a princess only because they made her a chief in the movie. But in the for the diversity in body type on the right, I want to say the way they made her body type is accurate in my perspective to how females, like Islander females, look like nowadays, because they it wasn't as, they didn't place it as like an overweight type of thing, how people stereotype us Islanders as overweight and things like that. And her calves are pretty big, so in my
All right.
American melting pot.
Sure.
Not. Oh my goodness. Okay, next slide, please. Guess the problem. Like all good movies, there's always a problem. I guess my question for you guys is, do you guys know of any problems that had to do with the movie Moana? That's associated with Moana's film, and how so?
I think one of the problems that I see from like movies like Moana and also Mulan is that it gives only one representation or a dominant representation of what it is to be Asian American or what it is to be Pacific Islander. So I feel like that's one of the big problems when, when something as big as Disney, try to represent a culture, because people tend to think, oh, that is the only way now that we can see Pacific Islanders, or nope, this is the only way we can see Asian Americans. And I think that's one of the big problems I see with these kinds of portrayals, because something as big as Disney, like it's towards popular media. And so people who don't have any understanding of what it means to be an Asian American or Pacific Islander, when they see that, that's kind of like their only way or their only interaction or only understanding of these types of cultures.
Right. Thank you, Nestor, for sharing that. Anybody else? Wow, don't all speak at once. I love this.
You have a voice.
What I think is weird about Disney movies and their portrayal is like, I guess the imagery, people relate the images they see to real life, and so like with Moana and Mulan, like I notice now a lot of people call any island girl with long hair Moana, and it's kind of irritating because like I'm Kukui. I'm not Moana. I don't really care about being called Moana. Like I want to be called Kukui, or even like as both like Asian American and a Native Hawaiian. Like, I've seen people call other Asian girls like Mulan, and it's just like, that's so weird. Why would you call us after a cartoon character? It's not really a compliment. I just find it kind of weird and like objectifying, I guess would be the word. Just like, it's just a weird thing to do to someone and compare them to a cartoon.
Right. Thank you, Kukui. Okay, Shalom. Take it away.
Next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of the problems with Moana that we listed have to do with the Maui demigod myth versus the Disney Maui that they portrayed and the stereotype that came along with it. For example, we read up that in the demigod myth, Maui was actually not as big as the one they portrayed it on the movie, but he was actually fitted and not that many tattoos. But if you look at he was actually the demigod myth was actually a teenager approaching manhood, but the one they portrayed in the movie, he was an old man who was big and overweight, it seemed, and that's what the problem that we thought that was pretty big in the movie, because they are kind of putting stereotypes on islanders and what they look like and how they're built.
Mm. Yeah. And another thing is the stereotypical image of the Pacific. Moana, it's like, I read an article where it was like Moana perpetrates this stereotypical image of the Pacific as like this, tropical getaway or something like that. And like they argue that it continues American colonialism of the region. And so I thought that was pretty interesting too. So yeah, those are the problems. So thank you everybody for sharing. Now we're only gonna watch like a little bit of this, like maybe like the first 10 seconds, but yeah. And it really, what he said in 10 seconds, I think I can relate to my entire life, because as somebody who is Fijian, and I'm either like related back to Fiji water or Hawaii, it does get a bit irritating to have to tell people like, oh wow, I'm more than just Hawaiian, and Asians are more than just Chinese. Here on the right is a map of Asia, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of diversity in Asia. And even though China is pretty big, there's also these other beautiful countries in Asia. And so I feel like a lot of the times we just acknowledge that Asians are automatically Chinese, or like if we see an Asian, oh wow, she looks Chinese. That was a habit that I had like way back before I even was educated about all the other Southeast Asian countries. So we're more than just Chinese, and Pacific Islanders, we're more than just Hawaiian.
And touching upon this, like it's like we're talking about how this connects to the media, how the media has represented us.
Mm-hmm.
You guys notice how in Mulan and Moana, they lumped us all together for Mulan, they lumped all the Asian cultures. It was a Chinese. Mulan is based on a Chinese myth, and they decide to lump a Japanese flag and like the Huns, which aren't even bad guys, into like the movie, and they lump all the races and they lump it all up, and they tell you, oh, this is like one giant race. And there's people I met who told me they didn't realize there was more than one race besides or more than one Asian race besides Chinese or Indian or something.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because the media has enabled the way that we're portrayed to society, that everyone is just the same, when truly we're not.
Right. So.
And going back to what I said, what does this have to do with marginalization? We're subjected to a small part of society that only mentions us whenever they need us, or is forced to do so. Like they'll only like make a movie for us, or like add a tiny part for us when people call them out on it. Why has Disney not made an Asian princess yet? Mulan, there you go. Why has Disney not portrayed better, like more accurate movies based on myths and stuff? So Moana, here you go. We studied on it. It's kind of accurate. There you go. They do it enough to satisfy the people. And unfortunately, like nobody really supports us because we appear to be doing well. We don't need any help because according to stats, Asians have like the highest like median income. Asians are the highest race, like that, like highest percentage going to college. But when you break that you break that down all apart, you notice that like Asians, Pacific Islanders, like Southeast Asians, we're not just one. And unfortunately, like when we're separated, unfortunately, our livelihood, like our financial straits, our livelihood, and our college graduation rates are all drastically lower. And we do need support. We do need people to stand up for us and say, hey, you need to do something. You need to implement better education laws or implement better government laws to help support these immigrants, because we're not all wealthy and we're not all doing well. And we're often the butt of everyone's joke. Yellowface is like done a lot more times than people have like to think, like people think they have. And people are still okay with that. They're like, oh, like, have you guys ever heard of a Chinese, Japanese, Dirtinese? Look at these. Have you guys ever heard of those? I used to hear like the Chinese, Japanese, and they would like pull their eyes and do that things. And I would hear it all the time in elementary school. And they would do that thing, and it would tick me off so much because they would pull their eyelids and they pull it up, pull it down, and I'm like, what the heck? And if somebody else were to do it about Hispanic or like African American culture or like Black culture or anything, people would call them out on it. But nobody calls them out for us. And that's something we need to talk about again. Like, we need to like say that, hey, what you say about us does matter.
Right.
And that brings us to the next slide. Societal standards. So Shalom, I want Shalom to talk about how, Shalom to go into this more too, because Shalom? Yeah.
Yeah, for the movies we see nowadays, you'll see we only play a specific role. For example, like some islanders are played as bodyguards or fishermen in like other movies, and then like when it comes to the Asians, like some are shown as martial arts or things like that. And I think that has to do with the last slide. Yes, model minority, that part. It has to do with the last slide, how people nowadays are putting us in certain groups of where they feel like we belong, which we don't. People get mixed with.
And you see these movies, right? Like, just like Shalom said, they put us in the same category again. Fresh Off the Boat is based on like Asian lives in America. Crazy Rich Asians is a movie about Asian Americans, and Aquaman is played by Jason Momoa, which is a typical stereotype of a buff and tall like Pacific Islander. And we're only needed when when they need us to put us into a specific group. They only need us to cast us in specific roles and specific movies. Hey, you're Asian? That role's Asian. You fit it. Awesome job. And they put us in there. And so going on to the next slide.
So
Breakout session.
another
for this breakout session, the question, why are we lacking so much representation?
Does anybody want to share from their group why we're lacking so much in representation? If not, you know, there's a thing called picking somebody.
I just feel like we're losing so much of that because of how like one race could take over another race, you know? Like, I'm not gonna be rude, but like white people most likely are dominant to take over like most of the stuff because, you know, they have more connections or more rights into like getting things and stuff. So
That's awesome.
I don't know, I just feel like people who are not white have less opportunities of like doing stuff. So I don't know.
Thank you also for sharing. Does anybody else want to go before I start picking y'all?
Yeah, I wanted to say something, please. I think Roar said it that if you're the person that's writing the history, you're the one that has the most power. So if there's a group of people that is controlling what is being taught about certain groups, then they're the ones that kind of get to control us.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you, Lupe, for sharing. And just a heads up, this workshop is supposed to end at 5, but we're going to keep continuing the conversation. If you have to leave, we totally understand. But for now, me, Brenda, and Shalom will continue. So if you can stay, please stay. But if you can't, go ahead, leave. We got you. It's recorded.
Take a picture before people leave, remember?
Oh, should we do that right now?
I'll do that. I'll do that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Can
All
you
right.
imagine my face?
Before everyone leaves, we're going to take a picture.
Guys, my laptop sucks, so I can't even post a virtual picture. So imagine my face, okay? And look me up on AANAPISI website. Look me up.
Photoshop, I got you.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
You ready?
smiling right now.
Okay. 1,
Everybody smile.
2, 3. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Now let's keep continuing this conversation. Next, have we made progress? These are just a few of the Asian, well, actually, Two of the Boys I Loved Before is not an Asian film, but it does incorporate Asian characters in it. Laura Jean, who is half Korean, half white. But Parasite, this year just won an Oscar. It's a really great movie. Check it out. It's amazing. K-pop. So this band right here to the left, they are a group called GOT7, and I think it just goes to show that K-pop has been such a phenomenal sensation within the West. You'll hear a lot of people talking about BTS and Blackpink and a lot of these other very popular K-pop bands, and I think that can also have a negative side effect as well for getting Western influences, because they'll tend to focus on like one culture. For example, if somebody really loved GOT7, this Korean group, they'll be more interested in learning about Korea rather than just learning about Asian culture in general. So it could have like negative side effects as well. But in all, we have made progress. Have we made progress fast enough? I'm not sure about that. But yeah, Brenda, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just adding. Sorry. Just okay. Sorry, like my family's. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. So we've made progress, but kind of like just like as what Saini said, we've made progress in that we've been able to get our face and our race in general out there, but it's still not enough. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So going back to the point, we have made progress enough, but it's not enough so far, because these races that they talk about, anime, K-pop, and everything else, you see on screen, it's a specific country. It's a specific country overall, and it's not really the country like, hey, is it Vietnamese? Hey, is it Samoa? And is it like other like ethnicities? No. So even though we've made progress, it's still not enough, and that's why we want to go into the next slide and explain to you, like show you what people have done in order to progress this. So what did everyone think about that? For me, I just want to point something out while you guys are thinking about what just happened. Marlon Brando, it's kind of ironic because in the box video you guys just watched earlier was a video of how they mentioned about how Marlon Brando was casted as a Native American, and he was yellow facing as a Native American in one of the movies as Sekini. And it's interesting how in this part instead he presents his Oscar win to the leader of the Native American, I think Native Americans Association, and he gave it the opportunity for her to talk about like the recent ongoing like affairs with Native Americans. So if you guys actually look this video up and you guys look up unfortunately we don't have enough time, but if you guys look up this video and if you look up Marlon Brando and the lady in the video, it's really, I think she's called Little Feather, or I can't remember, but if you watch it, it's really important. Oh, and sorry, it's not yellow face, it's called red face. And I still want to talk, I still want you guys to like check it out because he's able to like write his mistakes for portraying another character, and he's able to give this opportunity to a lady to talk about the ongoing issues. And we need to be the same way. We need to start talking more about this. We need to start like telling someone to, we need to start like showing our voice in society and saying that we need to start making a change and that we need to be heard too. But it's kind of because it's crazy how nobody ever talks about this. Marlon Brando's Oscar win. I've only heard a couple people ever talk about it, but nobody's ever talked about like the thing she did, where she walked on stage to a super high like class like award ceremony to talk about like this discrimination that Native Americans faced in the film industry, and we need to talk about it too. And in this day and era where social media and like everything is so prevalent, we need to talk about it.
Yeah, so as Brenda was saying, we need our voices to be heard, essentially. We need to make a change. And that is why we're asking you, instead of, sorry, I just blanked out for a second. But we want to ask you, what ways can you think of that can help our voices to be heard as Pacific Islanders, Asians? What do you personally think of ways that we can be heard?
Like reach out to your mentors, like who is like well known to the community. Like who, like Kiana Fui. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, my bad. But my bad. So let's say like reach out to our mentors like Kiana, Nestor, like anybody who can help us with our generations to like help us with our voice, like what we're trying to say. I don't know what I'm trying to say either, so I'm just trying to say reach out to your mentors that you know that is well known to the community and help to raise our voice in our message that we're trying to put out there. So okay, I'm gonna put myself on mute now.
Thank you, awesome.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Yeah, does anybody else want to share? Thank you for that.
I'll go.
Yes.
Hey, I think a couple things is I think we all need to be more knowledgeable. The more knowledge that we gain and understand, I think we're able to navigate through the system, of Hollywood or of different spaces in America. I think we also need to support Pacific Islander people who have dreams of becoming an actor or actresses. I mean, let's face it, if we tell that to our parents, what they gonna say? Is that you want to become an actor? You know what struggle, like, I mean, this, like, if I told my parents that,
go do the laundry.
they're gonna shut down that dream. I don't think it's any different than the Asian family. It's gonna happen.
Go wash the dishes.
Like, what are you acting over there with your dishes with the room? Like, make fun of it, but like literally, there's like some founder woman, man out there that wants to become an actor, actress, and they do not have the support, not even of their own community.
Right.
Because do they have what it takes? Do they have the look? And so I just feel like we need to support more people in the arts. you know, so that we can be represented. Like, we're just specifically talking about media representation, which is a powerful tool.
Right.
So if we have people out there that we know, I mean, let's support them. You know, let's support them on their way towards, you know, being that person on stage or in the movie that we can see, you know. But if it's not, I mean, like, if we don't want to be controlled by Paramount or Universal Studios or whatever, you know, then we can create our own media and create our own movies.
Period.
Put that out there. So there's a couple ways of doing it.
Right. Thank you, Chaz. Like, and that brings me to like another point. Like, I remember when I was little, I wanted to be a professional guitarist, and my mom, oh my gosh, I have never seen a look of disappointment on her face like that ever in my life. But I think it just goes to show that community support is huge. If my mom like supported me during that time, would I have become like a professional guitarist by now? I don't know. I'll never know, Mom. But yeah, it just goes to show that community support is so huge and so important as well. So thank you, Chaz, for sharing that. Anybody else?
Well, I support your dream of being a guitarist if that's what you still want to do. I say go for it, learn the strings, learn whatever it is to it. So just to go off of what also and Chaz mentioned was that one, I definitely agree with what everybody's saying, talking about like community. I think, at least for me, there are other people who have navigated the system already. It is really good to get in contact with them to get advice and feedback on how to do it, how to navigate the system, to be successful in it. And I think as Pacific Islander, we've never necessarily done things on our own, and we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't start now. We've always started as a collective, as a community. And when it comes to acting, when it comes to school, when it comes to like navigating system, that's something that we can all lean on each other for to help and support each other. So 100% agree with also, because I would not be where I am if I didn't have Shirley Siloy as my mentor, because I did not picture myself to be in a higher education without her and her guidance in it. So a huge thank you to her. And then another thing is, I think, what's it called? Helping people to get into those fields is an amazing thing, but always for people who do go into like the entertainment industry, things of that nature, I would also say that they still have a mission to still be connected to their community. Because, you know, like if you go into these industries, they're going to have culture, they're going to have policies that make people change into a way that fits the culture, that fits the industry. So in my mind, I think that video did a perfect example of that. I shouldn't accept this, because if I accept this, then that means it's an excuse for you to continue what you're doing within the industry. So I think what that video really demonstrated was like, I'm happy that I was nominated for this award, but I won't take it because I know the heart that you continuously do, and I would not have me agree to this as an excuse for you to further that harm. So I think community at the end of it is like the whole thing. So people who do get into industry and have a big name, hoorah sis, shout out, you did it. But at the same time, it's like, don't forget. No, it's kind of like where I'm getting at.
Right. Thank you, Gordon. Yeah, that was dope. Thank you for sharing. Definitely should not continue that that change. So thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. I almost said something else. But yeah, anybody else want to share or put their...
Can I share something?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So, I guess like with the information that you guys presented to us, I think something that would be helpful is like realizing that the media in America is not very diverse, and to really just look at the things that we see on media with like a questioning eye, like, oh, is that really how it, like, is that really portraying accurately what Asians are, who Asians are? Is that, you know, is Moana really an accurate representation of our people? So, and that connects to what Chaz says, like doing research, asking your friends, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask, and be an ally to people. You know, if you know this is a problem, I think what's helpful with community work is just focusing on the idea of community and how it doesn't really have to just stay, it doesn't always have to stay confined to just our like ethnicities, but like knowing that you can have allies with Asians, knowing that you can have white allies or Black allies, and that you can be an ally too, and just having those conversations like, hey, I seen this on TikTok or Instagram, what do you think about this? And just like hearing what they have to say, I think will help us individually have a better picture of everything despite the media. And then, you know, from there, we can take whatever steps that we personally want to do to help out.
Yeah. Thank you, Kukui.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Like everything you guys brought up are ways that we can like make a difference in our society, and that's amazing. And I think just like how we wanted to bring our topic up today, about marginalization, about how a specific group like us don't have a voice in society. Like today, we do have that voice in society, and just like everything you have said, everything that we've talked about, like the disparity, we now can make a difference. Just like how Marlon Brando decided to give his opportunity to somebody else so that she can represent her voice, and how we have friends and allies too. We need to start making a voice too, and we can't brush it off no more, because we can't hold it in, and we can't keep it inside. We have to let it out now, because we're so used to holding it inside that none of us ever really talk about it. But it's time. We have the opportunity, we have the resources. Even in this time of hardship, we still have the resources. And thank you so much for sharing. And today, or any day, if you ever have time, do something and stand up for it. Like if anyone ever tries to put you down, stand up for it.
Right. Period.
So if you go onto Bitly, our Bitly page, and also on the AANAPISI Facebook, there's a list of what's coming up this week. So please check it out. There's a lot of stuff that's happening.
Right. Thank you.
I put that in the chat box as well.
Yes. Thank you for keeping up with the chat box, Nestor and Lupe. You are the real MVPs.
Thank you so much. They're
And
really helpful.
can we give it up for my boy Anmol, who's gonna catch?
Oh.
Hey.
Thank you everybody for coming today for our workshop on marginalization. If we can give a round of applause for our presenters, Saini Buli, Brenda Pham, and Shalom Mangel.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. Make sure you fill out that evaluation form.
Yeah, please.
And we will see you at tomorrow's event.